Let's take up part 2 of DSMA 5. Now this problem actually says to use the FOIL method. Most of them are not going to say that. They're going to say multiply or multiply the binomials. Now the FOIL only works if we have 2 terms here and 2 terms here. But this one will work, so let's take a look. Let's get to work here. So we're going to take the first 2 terms. That would be 4x times 5x. The outer terms would be 4x times 4. The inner terms will be 1 times 5x. And then finally, the last terms will be 1 times 4. All right, so we have 4x times 5x. So 4 times 5 is 20. And x times x is x squared. We know that from our exponent rules. Then we have 4 times x times 4. So let's multiply the 4's together and leave the x. 1 times 5x would give us 5x. And then finally, 1 times 4 is 4. So we're almost done. We always have to check to see if the middle terms are like terms. Like I said, a lot of the times that's what happens. Not always, though. All right, so ours are like terms. So we're going to get 20x squared on the front end. 16 plus 5 gives us 21x, and then plus 4. So this is the hard part about multiplying. When you're multiplying, you use exponent rules. So like the x times x gave us x squared. But then you switch to adding and subtracting. With adding and subtracting, we don't change the exponents. And so that's the trick with these. That's why you have to practice them. Okay, so you try this a minute. I'm going to silently work along with you. Okay, so the first 2 terms, 8x times 6x gave us 48x squared. X times x is x squared because we're multiplying. Then we did our outer terms. That was 8x times 7. So that gave us 56x. Then our inner terms, negative 5 times 6x gave us negative 30x. And then finally, negative 5 times 7 gave negative 35. Then we checked those middle 2 terms. They are like terms, so I was able to subtract those, and that left me with 48x squared plus 26x minus 35. And then I have to put all of that into the answer. All right, this one's going to look a little different. Notice we have a few more exponents here, but we still can use FOIL because it's 2 terms and 2 terms. So let's get this set up, and then we'll talk about our exponent rules and review. For the first 2 terms, we have 8x to the 3rd power times x squared. For our our outer, we have 8x to the 3rd power times negative 7. For the inner, we have 7 times x squared. And then finally, for the last 2, we have 7 times negative 7. All right, so for that first term, we have 8 times 1, and then x to the 3rd power times x squared. Remember that when we multiply variables, we're going to add the exponents. So that's going to give me x to the 5th power. Here I have 8 times negative 7. So I'm going to get negative 56x to the 3rd power plus 7x squared minus 49. Now this time, we don't have any like terms because in the middle, we have x to the 3rd power and we have x squared. So we don't have any like terms that we can add together. Therefore, we're going to have to take all of this and type it into MyMathLab for our answer. All right, so they try to trick you on these. This is a binomial inside. So because of the plus sign inside, if there was a plus sign or a minus sign, if we were adding or subtracting inside, we cannot use power of a product because this isn't a product, it's a sum. And so what I do is I go ahead and write both of them side by side, because if I do that, I will realize that I need to use FOIL, right? So whenever I see a plus, a subtract, or excuse me, the addition or subtraction inside the parentheses like this, and it's raised to a power, I go ahead and write the binomials out. Even if it was raised to the third power, I would just add one more to the end. And that way that'll keep me from trying to use power of a product, because I can't do that. It's not multiplication inside. All right, so now we can use FOIL. We have x times x, which is x squared, x times 5, the outer. Then we have inner, 5 times x. And finally, our last, 5 times 5 is 25. In the middle, we have common like terms. And so we end up with x squared plus 10x plus 25. And we're done. Hopefully this is starting to look like you can do a little faster with the FOIL. All right, so this one's the same idea. I have a plus sign in the middle. So this is a sum, not a product. And so I'm going to, now I know it says it's a product, but it's a product when we do this, right? When we write the two binomials side by side, okay? And then we can use FOIL. So we have 6x times 6x. That gives us 36x squared. We have 6x times 5, our outer. Then we have our inner, 5 times 6x. And finally, last is 5 times 5, which gives us 25. Our middle terms are like terms. So we end up with 36x squared plus 60x plus 25. And there we go. Okay, so it says find the product. That just means multiply. But this time we can't use FOIL because we have 3 terms here, right? So we have to do a little more work on this one. What we're going to do is we're first going to distribute this x in the front. So we're going to multiply x times each of these terms. So we're going to take x times x squared. Well, if we do that, we get x to the third power, right? Remember, this is x to the 1 here. So x times x squared gives me x to the third. Then I'm going to take x times negative 2x. So that's minus 2x squared. And finally, x times 4. And so that would give me a 4x. So I took the x to the 1 power out that very first term, and I distributed, multiplied, times x squared, times a negative 2x, and times the 4. Okay, now I have to do the same thing with the 2. So I'm going to take 2 times x squared, 2 times negative 2x, and 2 times 4. And as I write these, I'm going to line up my like terms. So when I take 2 times x squared, I get 2x squared. So I'm going to line that up with the other x squared. Then I've got 2 times negative 2x. So 2 times negative 2 would give me negative 4, but I still have the x. So I put those like terms together. And then finally I have 2 times 4. So that would be plus 8. All right, so now I've multiplied everything. And when I multiply, I use my exponent rule. So I use the product rule when I multiplied x to the 1 power times x squared. That's how I got x to the third power. So now I'm just going to add down. So I have x cubed. Oh, look, I have 0 because negative 2x squared plus 2x squared That gives me 0. Then I have 4x minus 4x. That gives me, so these are all 0. And then I have plus 8 on the end here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the zeros. And my answer would be x to the third power plus 8. Ooh, crazy looking. All right, let's try another one. So I'm going to take 3x times each of the terms in the, what we call trinomial, because there are 3 terms. So we're going to take 3x times x squared. So that's going to give me 3x to the third power, right? Because it's 3 times 1. There's a 1 in front of the x squared. Technically, it's implied. And then x times x squared gives me x to the third power. Then I'm going to take 3x times 9x. So 3 times 9 is 27, and x times x is x squared. And then finally, I'm going to take 3x times 4, and that gives me 12x. Okay, so that was distributing the 3x among all 3 of those terms. So now I need to take the 5 and do the same thing. And then I'm going to keep them lined up. So 5 times x squared would give me 5x squared. Keep like terms together. 5 times 9x would give me 45x. And then finally 5 times 4 would give me 20. And so now I'm going to add down. I get 3x to the third power plus 33x squared plus 57x plus 20. Whew. And then I have to take all of that and put that in as my answer, because there are no like terms. There's nothing else I can do with that. All right, so I just want to talk one more time about whether we have a product inside the parentheses or whether we have addition or subtraction. So with the exponent rules, if we had something like this, because there's no addition or subtraction inside, because it's multiplication, right? It's a product. I'm able to use the power of the product. And so I can do 5 squared times x squared, and that would give me 25x squared. Okay, so that works because it's a product. Now, if I had given you x plus 5, now I cannot bring that square in. And this is one of the big mistakes on the first test as well. I cannot say that this is x squared plus 25 because that's not right, because there's a middle term. So what I do is when I see that it's not multiplication or division. So if it's all multiplication inside, I'm good to go. I can distribute that square. If it's division, I can distribute that square. But if I see addition on the inside, I go ahead and write these, because if I write them side by side, I'm not going to be tempted to bring the square in. And so now I would need to use FOIL. And if I FOIL, I get x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25. And that would be x squared plus 10x plus 25. So see, we have this middle term, and I would miss that middle term. If I had just brought the square in and said x squared plus 25, that would not be correct. And I would be missing that middle term, that 10x. Okay, same thing happens if I have subtraction. So if I had x minus 3 squared, it's the same idea. It's not multiplication, it's not division. I cannot just bring that square in. I have to literally write these side by side. Then I can FOIL. And that would give me x squared minus 6x plus 9 once you're done. Whoops, that's a plus 9. And so if I had just tried to square the x and square the negative 3, I would be missing this middle term, and it would be incorrect. All right, so that's it for DSMA 5. Now it's your turn to practice.